your camera. I just would like to kick off this session. My name is Martin Pergal. I'm Vice Principal at Royal Conservatoire in The Hague, but I also happen to be the chair of the steering group of the Metric Network. And what's this Metric Network then? This Metric Network, for those who don't know, it's a network that has been established, a couple of years ago by a number of institutions. And the aim of this network was to promote the role and the position of improvisation in higher music education, so in conservatoire training. And we had a few years of quite nice European funding, and we did a lot of very exciting things. We built up the network. We may build up a website, which you may have seen. It's metricimpro.eu, so please visit it if you have a moment. You'll find all kinds of pedagogical materials, some films, some information about what we did. And now we are an independent network, and we're trying to pursue our aim to promote improvisation in higher music education by organizing every year an intensive program. And this year it's going to be in February in Leipzig. And now we are starting with a new experiment, which is these online metric sessions, which we wanted to try out and see who will show up, and invite some teachers, some improvisation teachers, to talk about their improvisation teaching. So the first person that we invited to come is Anne La Berge. Welcome, Anne, who happens to be also a teacher in my institution. So it's kind of a minor coincidence. But I know she does this very well, so that's the reason why we invited her for the first session. So she's going to take you through some information she wanted to share with you. I think she's also at the end, she's going to ask you some questions and involve you into this discussion. So before I pass on the floor to Anne, I wanted to welcome you again. It's wonderful that quite some people are showing up. I see that some people are still entering the Zoom session. So welcome to you all, and please, Anne, go ahead.
Do you know who I am? Any of you? I'm a bit of a mystery, aren't I? I am a flutist composer. I do electroacoustic media work, which in this day and age needs improvisation. You don't I guess you can spotlight me. You don't need to spotlight me, because I would love to see everyone else. Could you take me off the spotlight? Alessandra?
Yeah, you should be now off the spotlight.
Okay, I'm not on my setting. Thank you very much, because now I'm looking at everyone. As an improviser, I need to interact with the room, and interacting only with myself is a different kind of improvisation. I have been throughout my career an improviser, a composer, and also, as I said, a media artist. And in recent years, I've been asked to come on and be a teacher in the Conservatory in The Hague. Why do we even improvise? For one, we don't know what we're going to do today, so we improvise all day. Do you know exactly when you're going to brush your teeth tonight? Do you know who you're going to run into the hall tomorrow? Are you prepared when you run into that person in the hall tomorrow to say exactly or to feel something exact? No. This is our life, this whole improvisation. Even people who read music, who do conventional scores, on some level are improvising. So what I want to talk about today is when I teach these improvisation classes within the conservatory, I like to work with some kind of movement towards scores as a way for the students to have something material to guide their communication structure. Does anybody in this room, we're a room of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. We're a room of 15 people. I'm so glad I can see all your faces. I guess some cameras aren't working today. Are there professional improvisers in this room? Yes, okay. So you know what that's like, that you just come in. Oh, great. Thank you, Ava, for the thumbs up. You come in, and Wang, or Jay Wang, that this interaction is somehow the soul of your music making. And to explain to everyone why you do that, it's tricky, it's complex. Your teachers didn't tell you, oh, you should be a professional improviser. One of the things to think about is where you came from. Like, who is in your tribe? And do you only play with the people from your own tribe? Or are you searching to play with people from other tribes to make a music that's completely new? Sometime within the modern music tradition, let's say in the 1950s, 1960s, when John Cage came along and the Americans were very experimental and they were working on an improvisation that didn't come from jazz. So it wasn't improvising within what we would call the jazz idiom, but it was taking improvisation and trying to open it up and stretch it. And some people would claim it has no style, but of course it has a style. It has the classical modern music style behind it. And that is one tribe. Does anybody in this room play free jazz and free classical and free pop and made up multimedia improvisation? Or do you come, Stefan, or do you come out of a style group and basically remain within that style group? Feedback here. I'm improvising, so I need your feedback. Jeremy, you work in many different style groups?
Yes, I'm a pianist, so I'm from classical pianist training, but I'm working with many different style groups, and I like to get in and out of the style and then just venture around and different multidisciplinary also with the painters and also dancers.
So we call it multidisciplinary. Yeah. Other people, multidisciplinary improvisers? Stefan, Grigory, okay, feedback, wonderful, thank you very much. Going on, so the techniques, Paula, all right. Great, now I know who I'm talking to because then I don't have to be talking about things that I would consider unfamiliar to you. Thank you for the feedback. The techniques, listening, aware of people in the room. Even here, for me to be aware of who you are in this room helps me improvise to get through this talk. Beginnings and endings. Sorry, I'm on the road. Okay, Ava. Leading and following. And one of the main points is, to me, your musical imagination and how you make that grow and how you bring students in to trust their musical imagination, to access their musical imagination, and then to make use of it in materials that they can own, call their own. One thing I use, I'm going to share, I'll share just there. Does everybody know this book? Nods of heads. Ben, do you know this book? Anna, do you know this book?
No.
It's a very useful book. It's by Pauline Oliveras, who I think, is she familiar to you? Some of you? Yeah. Pauline Oliveras was an experimental artist in the United States, deceased, and she made, take note of it. Do you want, this is not a PowerPoint, but I am easily accessible to give you what I've been referring to in this talk. This is a book of text, as it says, text scores, and also graphic scores, performance pieces that throughout history, since, the 80s, I would say, have been used by many people, professionals and educators. I will get to it, for giving people some access to guided improvisation, I'll call it. I'll show you one page. This page is called Dissolving Earplugs. And so these are some of the beginnings of improvisation. For improvisation that's trying to work in multidisciplinary, multi-style. Take some time no matter where you are. For instance, right now, close your eyes for a while and just listen. When you open your eyes, consider what you heard as the music. Later, try to remember what you heard and express it with your instrument or your voice. Another time, sit down with your instrument and just listen with your eyes closed. As you realize what you are hearing is music, allow your instrument or voice to enter this musical stream. Stop when the music is over. This is supported improvisation. Listen to a favorite machine or play or sing along with it. Listen to a favorite natural soundscape and play or sing along with it. And that's somewhat archaic. This is old-fashioned stuff. Does anybody use this kind of stuff in their teaching? Yes, no? Yeah.
No.
No. It's useful in the sense that it brings listening to a recalibration point. So for instance, let's do that right now. Some of you have headphones on. Take one headphone off. What sounds do you hear outside of your room? What sounds do you hear inside of the room? Can you hear your heartbeat? I can see from some of your faces that you're actually enjoying this, that you've brought yourself to a neutral place. And if we all had instruments in our hands, we would then simply be able to play what we hear. And then we could listen to another instrumentalist and play what we hear of them. So I offer you Pauline Oliveras. She's creative. She's been quite a figure in history. Some of it's a little wooby-dooby, a little American. So I'll warn you about that. But others are extremely useful in the sense of what we just did, that they make you listen. So the next issue is, who is in the room? How do we deal with silence? What are the instruments that are being played? The next piece I would like to show you is a piece by a student at the Conservatory from 2020 who was in the Creative Music Collaboration course. He's a cellist. So put your fingers on your table and think, this is an instrument. This is a piece about touch. Mediate on the idea of feeling your instrument. The bow on the strings, different sounds of materials, wood, horsehair, wire strings, my fingers on the strings, rubbing, tapping, scratching, pointing. Eyes perhaps closed to lower our other sensory stimuli. Think about touch. How does it feel? So this is a cellist, a young cellist, early 20s, who's explaining to his fellow colleagues, who was, I think in that room there was an electric guitar player, there was a singer, a couple of jazz singers, there was a bassoon player, and he's explaining how he, in his tactile, personal way, relates to his instrument to explore sound, but also just to simply explore his instrument. So this is one way when you take away style worlds or you bring in the, quote, modern music experimental world, how you can have the players use a score in order to objectify, rather than saying, I want everyone to let's just kind of play and then reflect on it, for some reflection to go on before we've come together, and then to use this material and to do what I've just done with you, to say, this is how I come to making sound because I'm a cellist. Let's go on. This one is from a workshop. I'll make it a little smaller here. Yeah. From a workshop I did for first-year students just a couple weeks ago. And this guy, Liam, he's a bassoon player. He's a classical bassoon player. You can see the application, right? You can see this. All right. So Liam, he made this score. Can you see my arrow here? Okay, so on the left he says an octave higher, and here he says an octave lower. He gives us some kind of like mysterious clef. He gives us 4 ledger lines, a repeat sign on one side, and some pitch. Maybe. How do we know if it's pitch? But what Liam has done is he's come in with this score, and it was a group of 20 first-year students. And he brought in his imagination of how he could mess with us. Basically screw with our heads, to see how he could get us to come into his imaginative world. And he explained to us and conducted us on how to play this. I don't know, it was sort of like it was a 30-second piece. But rather than trying to arrive at this always with free improvisation and say, okay, let's listen to this moment, Liam was able to bring his universe visually into us really quickly, and to play around, but not just play around in a way that would, you know what? It's not just to play around in a way where you have to always look for the sheep with the bell. It's a way to look at how we as humans have used objects as ways to guide us into deeper imaginative worlds. Moving on, we'll go back to Pauline and how the score can help us think about direction. So I give a scores class for electronic musicians, and one thing that I've discovered is electronic musicians in the 21st century are still not actively archiving and documenting their work, because they make things out of materials, like with their computers or their synthesizers. And we do that too as free improv. We make things, we do it in real time, but how do we communicate where our imagination was moving in that time? And here we talk about that in the Western world, we often think from left to right, but not all cultures do. I often show Hebrew and other languages in my classes, and we contemplate what it would feel like. And the Israeli people in my class always explain what it feels like, that things move from right to left. And then how do we feel time? Do we feel time as a global thing? Does time go like this for us? Does time go like this for us? And where is a priority in a circle? Pauline, in this piece, the Wind Horse Mandala, has put listen as the priority and then other parameters as different priorities. So this gives us as a group of musicians, different paradigms to discuss how we think and feel about the music that we make, and time. And Pauline's, she explains it. She doesn't only use musical parameters. From here on, she says story, also something that wakes up imaginations. Metaphors, one way to bring yourself into someone else's musical world. Inner and outer, we just did that. We did that with listening to yourself in the room, outside, listening to what's in here. But I find starting to look at time and place differently allows students to jump out of the style world that they're so accustomed. Right, now we're back, right? Okay, I'm trying to get really virtuose with this sharing screen thing so that I can see you all again. The idea of different times and places I use so that we have a way to discuss personally how people see time. In fact, I'm going to ask you, how do you see the year? I see winter on top. I see a kind of oval thing. I see winter on top, so Christmas and the vacation stuff is here. And I see summer down here, and school starts. See, if I'm mirroring you, school starts on my right. And I feel time like that. Does anybody feel time similarly, or do you feel time differently? Stefan, or Cristiano, how do you feel time?
Similarly, maybe not
winter on top.
Yes, not with the summer below, but the summer is one of the end.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Anybody feel? Yeah, Stefan.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned oval. I never thought about that. It's more circle for me.
Yeah.
I wonder why the oval. So
because I don't know. It's just, Cristiano, do you have an explanation why we are oval thinkers and Stefan is a circle thinker?
I think maybe we are really bound to the academic here. It's just
I'm bound too.
Yeah.
No excuse.
Yeah, but it makes summer really wide.
Okay.
And it makes winter also really wide and fall and spring kind of crunched in. It depends on how much we love a certain season. So this kind of discussion with students brings out not only their imagination about time and place, but it brings out their emotional response to time and place. And then an emotional response is, why do I play what I play? Do I like it? Because what I found with many students is they're bound to play what they think they're supposed to play. And sometimes I'll say, just play what you want to play and see if it's right, and don't think about if it's right or wrong, and make a mess. And we practice making very messy music just to see what that feels like. Academia does not necessarily make. Academia is a mess. We just need to talk about it. This is one I so love, this score. This was part of the electronic music class just 3 weeks ago, a class of 20. In 15 minutes, I said, because we talked about text scores, and I was saying text has many different functions in our psychology and in our sense of responsibility. The Bible, God is text. So how are we going to relate to that? And also graphics, like we just talked about. How do we picture and feel dimensions of time and place and sound in that time and place. So Ram, who's an Israeli electronic artist, made this score. One side was the text, the other side was the circle. And we're going to play this. So what I'm going to do, this is the score, and it's turning a line into a circle. And you all have an emotional response to that. A line is this, and a circle is this. Okay, so what we're going to do with this piece is, and if anybody wants to turn on their mics, that would be welcome. Or you can just listen to yourself. We're going to play this piece. It's a circle. And the circle, through time, will go, which Terry Riley's In C did this, John Cage's Atlas Eclipticalis did this. I'm going to trace the circle around my screen. And we're going to make mouth sounds, inhaling and exhaling. And we're going to do that for the duration of the circle. Should I be the conductor, or does someone else want to conduct? Me? I guess, yeah, because I'm getting paid to do this, right? All right, so good, because then you don't have to bill me to pay you to be conductor. So who's going to turn on their mics to be part of this piece? Thank you. Who else is going to turn on? Somebody's in their car. If you're in your office, you can turn on. Ben, you can turn on your mic.
Very well, as you command.
Ready? The experience of physically being in the same physical time, and because we talked about the seasons, we just went through a year together. And that being in the same place, just with a circle, and to talk about what a circle means, brings the students' imaginative world, and emotional world, and also then, bang, someone who made this score owns it and would be able to take it to a different group of people and play that piece. Let's do another piece. Because I can see Martin, Stefan, Anna, Ben, Alessandro, Jacca, and Cristiano will play this game. I would like you to mirror me. And when I say someone else's name, we will mirror them. And when I say someone else's name, we will mirror them. Mirror me with your hands. Anna, you're the leader. Ben, you're leading. Martin. Stefan. Alessandra. Jacca. Okay, come back. Let go. Who enjoyed leading? Who enjoyed following? Yeah. So in order to lead, and this is also with improvisation, and this is part of how I work with the students. In order to lead, we need to be clear, You need to have an idea. You need to see that everyone was on board. And that's quite interesting in this environment, because you're having to really step back and use this room and respond and guide and lead the room. You also need to use time in a way that you know people are on board. Or if you don't care, make that clear. I thought, who started going like this? It was really got us going. And then Alessandra brought us back. So it was an interesting use of time and dynamic to shake us up. Follow. What do you need to do to follow? Because that's also for students in improvisation. Well, it's in life in improvisation. You need to give up part of yourself. And in a student's life, oftentimes they're so concerned with being a good student that just to simply give up performing and being good, to go inside is something new to them. Also, to lead is something perhaps new to them. To trust. Also, to follow, you need to give signs that you're on board. If you're not following, you need to say, hey, slow down. So these principles I bring in to an improv environment actively all the time. Who's leading? Who's following? Maybe no one. How is that working for you? Did you hear? Did you notice? Okay, let's move on. Any questions so far? I have about 7 minutes more of talking, and then we can go into discussion if you like. Moving on. This is then looking at, we've been looking at human beings. We've been looking at the joy of someone having a score, being able to conduct their score, being able to take contemplation time, to use that as a way to guide people into a time and space that they're not used to. Also, scores are places to identify my tribe. I tell students who are in jazz, come in, bring us a chart. Bring us a chart, and then I'll say to a classical person, use this jazz chart and bring in a classical piece with a chart style. And one student brought in Bolero in a chart style, and the jazzers were going, whoa, this is amazing. I can play this orchestra piece, because they were able to start to relate to each other in using the, hello, a new person?
My wife Maria, and she's also a bassoon player and improviser.
And I teach
and also teacher.
Teacher improvisation in the MDW on the university in Vienna.
Oh, in Vienna. I'll be in Vienna on Saturday.
Okay.
And Sunday. So wonderful. We did the bassoon piece. I'll have to send that to you. Mm-hmm. So the idea of bringing in your tribe and using written material and starting to divide that and merge it gives the students more objectivity than only coming in their raw, naked sound world. Okay, moving on. I use digital score. Now I'm going to share my screen, which means you'll see yourselves, because what I want to do is open a clip, this clip here. And this is a max patch. Does everyone know? I'll just introduce it. I won't ask because there's screens that aren't on. Max is a computer program that electronic musicians use and composers use to make sound, but also they can use it to make visual feedback. This is a score that I can transmit to people's telephones. So we're using devices, which is so great because the students, I'll say, get your phones out. And all of a sudden I have wow, we're going to get to use our phones. And on their phones are these buttons. And when they press this button on their phone, different people's names will come up. So in this concert that I played 3 weeks ago, we had, and this is interdisciplinary I'm talking about, we had a Renaissance singer lute player, we had a Syrian hakaboard, Syrian cymbalom player, singer, we had a guitar player, and we had a viola player. And when they would press their change button, their names would come up, our names would come up in different configurations, which meant play. But what was so delightful is if people wanted the section to move on, they got to push the change button. This is using digital score and a computer as our conductor rather than a human, although the humans were in charge of the change. So I made a little film of what it would look like. And these sections could last 5 minutes, sometimes 2 seconds. It depends how trigger happy you are. And there was silence, which is amazing. And at the end, there's a coda, which asks people to improvise an ending. So the advantage, well, I'll show you another one. I'll show you one from a workshop I did in Iceland for young Scandinavian creative artists. And this one was that there were 6 members in the ensemble, and their name would come up at random. And then we made names for sections that we sort of thought we knew were the sections. And the computer would also randomly bring up the name of the section, which means that the computer is doing the improvising. But we still were in charge of the timings of the sections. So the students were able to name the sections. The students were able to work, to contribute, to form this digital score. And they were the ensemble members. I've used this with professionals in many, many different configurations, this same idea of the same technique, to be able to start using our technology as part of the integral part of our improvisation, not only sonically, but also as a person, as a new member to the ensemble. Then moving on, the last bits are visuals as part of the score, because we looked at graphics, but we didn't look at, I'm going to share, I have to move here. We didn't look at, going back here, at how many people regard their musical world. Now I have to put you all in a place, and you're not, there you are, I'll put you up here. They regard their musical world, and many people feel this way. They feel like their musical world is a flow of images. Because we went from text now, and we went into graphics, which is really a sort of black and white. We talked about our lives in terms of how we visualize shapes, even in terms of how we visualize time in our lives, whether we go from left to right, right to left. Marta is she's like an 18-year-old, I think she was a singer, and in our startup week in the workshop. And she explained this, and this is like a 2-minute piece that uses some text, some geometry, but you can feel this piece, can't you? Just wait and listen till the end of the sound. That's very common among young players, is they think that beginnings and endings will happen by themselves, because they expect the grown-ups to take responsibility for those things. And I find it this is one of the more interesting parts as far as almost training people to learn to stop. What are beginnings and endings in each tribe of musical style? And that's why when in my graphic scores, I actually give them the coda. And the last one, this was in the creative music collaboration class. This is incredible. How inspiring is this? Also a young composer, a pianist, singer. And you can see, if we start to look at music in these terms, you can see she offered transitions from blocks to blocks. I think there were 8 players in this group, so various people were able to take, you can see similarities of colors, were able to either own a graphic, or they were able to decide how from space to space they would respond. And this piece could use a half-hour rehearsal. So it gave the students a chance to discuss, to own, to think about how they were going to travel through time, and from week to week develop the piece, but still deal with the changes as improvisers. That's pretty much what I was planning to say. Let me look at my notes for a sec and to speak about, how this use of text, graphic, digital score, something objective that has to do with the it of the world rather than the I, me, what am I going to do, but something objective to like clay to work with, and also for the creator to give them time to contemplate, to shape, and to puzzle out how to articulate what the hell is going on in their imagination. Because all of you in this room here right now, as you were puzzling out, where am I going to move my hand? For a moment was like, oh no, I'm the leader. What am I going to do? Right, it's my hand. I'm going to be able to do this. And the followers, it was like, for a moment, am I going to be able to follow? Or, whoa, this is my hand. Oh, that's their hand over there. And so these intricacies of using objects I find very useful with people. It's 1844. Do you want to ask any questions, or do you want me to tell you more things about improvising? Do you want to have a drink or dinner? Where are you now?
And so first, I would like to thank you for your presentation, rather speech. You put some heavy accent, about my experience in improvisation for the new objects. So I want to tell you that I have practiced Dalcroze's method, Dalcroze's eurythmics for 30 years. So it's improvisation is one of the most important branch of this method. Mm-hmm. Not only piano, but also the movement improvisation and vocal improvisation. But I focus on the movement, and I want to tell you and you, dear participant, that when I mean about the improvisation in a holistic way, it sounds very interesting. But when I mean about the improvisation like a subject, I taught my students at Academy of Music, eurythmic students, because I'm teacher for eurythmic students. Mm-hmm. So I have to follow the schedule. It's mean the program. I have. Yes, because I have no time. It is the classes of piano improvisation. It's separate subject because the piano improvisation is the very important for the future teacher of Eurythmics, etc. at school on many different level of education in Poland. Yes.
So my question is, are you asking about whether or not whether or not you should stick to the program, or are you having difficulties sticking to the program?
I want to tell you that your presentation and your speech was dedicated the musician. So yes, but something like open classes for all kind of musicians.
Yes.
Yes, it's totally different because probably you have a time to touch and touch many topics, many subjects, and then some graphics, it's something like that.
Yes.
But I want to tell you about my position. Not only, of course, I'm created if someone offer me. So now you are the teacher, open classes for all the kind of musician. Yes, it's maybe it will be interesting for me. Because I also lead some workshops for professionals, amateur, etc., for many kinds of improvisation, because I have practiced this for many years. It sounds very interesting to inspire different kind of, not only the score and the music and new technology, digitals. It's interesting, even for me, yes, but standardly, when I mean about the classes of improvisation, piano improvisation, we have no time for those kind of experiment.
You have no time. What I would like to propose is to make time, because improvisation has to do with the future of music and of human communication.
Yes,
in our culture right now, in this world, one of the reasons why we are not able to communicate and why the gap is this big is because we are making decisions that we need to keep within our tribes. So the piano could be expanded into a class where other musicians are welcome. I propose that we start imagining that within institutions, that departments become less and less separate. Because the youth of today, like I said, they use their phones. I've given improvisation classes for high school kids. Their instrument was their phone because they couldn't afford anything else. My proposition is, if you are having limits within that class, change the class. Invite some people, or invite a time, 10 minutes per class, where everyone plays inside the piano and goes out, listens to a bird, and comes in and plays the bird. Something that provides those students with the inspiration that what's in their imagination is important to own, so that the future will take them seriously as formative musicians. They're the ones that matter, not the structure of the class necessarily. I'm being hard on you, I know, but I only have 10 minutes left and you can crucify me.
Thank you for your advice.
But I think you should start working in part of your class where real improvisation, real imagination is part of the class.
Of course, I know about it. It's not something new for me. Of course, it's not something new for me. But I just only share. I mean, about the situation, about the classes, about the
yes.
So
we need to start improvising our sense of school.
Yeah. Yes, I absolutely agree with you. Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Anna. Anybody else? Well, that's really valuable, Anna. In fact, I may have to be apologizing to people for what came out of my mouth just now. Who else has something that they would like to ask? And thank you so much, Anna. I will remember that question. Cristiano.
Yes, just out of, I'm very sorry I arrived a little bit late. I was teaching before, I couldn't join from the beginning. So maybe something that it's not clear for me. It has been already very well explained. But just now when you were answering, you were saying real improvisation. So I'm quite curious about the real against the eventual unreal improvisation.
Well, moments where the unknown is engaged. Moments where we stop and there's what we did earlier is as we took one headphone off and we listened to the room and we found out what was going on in the room. And all of your rooms are different. But I could see on your faces that you were having an experience that you hadn't anticipated you would have 10 minutes ago. So to me, the listening is one of the first moments of improvisation, because then you engage not knowing. And then when you engage, we did some experiments, we played the game. You engage in, are you going to lead? How do you recognize what's in your imagination? But you need first to have a moment to be able to engage your imagination and actually assess how much is being guided by a sense of responsibility, a sense of duty, or a sense of, this is new. This combination of people, this combination of my thoughts, this combination of okay, so you're sitting on your chair. Sit on one sit bone. Sit on the other sit bone. Lean forward, lean back. Okay, what was new? What was a moment that was new?
So the key elements for you, it's before you said unknown and
Yeah.
to a certain, and also what is new. There has to be newty.
I'm not saying there has to be, because I don't know. It's improvisation.
But when you make the distinction that is a real improvisation, then something new has to happen, or something unknown has to happen.
What do you think? This is now getting into how we talk about it. We could have a whole class on that, couldn't we?
Of course.
Is new? Does improvisation need to have something new? Does it need to have discovery? When we say the word improvisation, or is that experimentation? Is this about the science of experimentation? Is this about the discovery of something? Is this about uncovering what was old? Some of it is asking the students what is their turn on to be able to identify themselves musically. I'm going to have to think about that, like for the rest of my life. Does improvisation have to be new? You know, my experience when I go into free jazz, because I was like a virtuoso classical flutist, and then an artist in the multimedia domain. And then I played for years, and I have still been playing with free jazz. When I go into a free jazz situation, I know that their new or their improvisation has less to do with experimentation. Just because my training, my original tribe was John Cage. You know, I hung out with him. So that's a different idea of improvisation. This would be a great discussion to bring up in the next meeting, wouldn't it? Does anybody have an answer here?
Well, I was just stuck by the word real, or that recall also an eventual unreal improvisation. Because all the rest you said, I can very much share.
Yeah.
But the word real or unreal, It feels strange
So
to me.
the word real, then
Real improvisation, like
real
that's
improvisation.
real.
So what I was implying somehow that there was unreal improvisation. I think it was just like saying really improvisation,
Okay.
or happy,
All right.
or very, or wonderful improvisation.
Sure. A good one, a good experience of it.
Yeah, I think in my enthusiasm, I used a word that took us down the rabbit hole.
Sorry.
Someone put in the chat that new, something about new. What happened? Maybe nothing is new. Yeah. What I think is so lovely about our rabbit hole, Cristiano, is now everyone is thinking really hard and pondering. The next time they go into an improvisation setting, they're going to look at everybody and they're going to say, is this new? Does this have to be new? Is this real? Does this have to be real? And that's in a way, the beauty of improvisation is that it allows us to continue to ask those questions, particularly in the academic environment, when asking questions is not necessarily a part of our flow. I go into classes and I say, someone will say, now what is the right way to deal with this? And I'll say, I couldn't teach a class if I told you what the right way was, because I need to learn in every class I teach. So we'll figure out what the way is for now. And I find that in improvisation, the deep course we're taking and how that's going to bring us further, using it. Anybody else? Okay. Alessandra, do you want to?
Absolutely no. I mean, I cannot close better than you. And thank you for bringing us down the rabbit hole with you. And thank you for the session. For all those of you who attended, thank you for attending this first online improv session with us. There will be more in the upcoming months. The idea was to organize once every 3 months about. So obviously, if you would like to stay in touch, I suggest, if you're not already a subscriber of the AEC newsletter, I would say just subscribe to the AEC newsletter or to the Metric newsletter. I have put both links in the chat, so you have a look at both websites. Thanks again for coming, and thanks to Anne. Let's all give her a round of applause for the session. There we go. Thank you so much, Anne.
Thank you for coming and for taking me down the rabbit hole.
Great. And then we'll see you very soon at the next session.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Kyle.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.